Hello and welcome to the International Daily Roundup by People's Dispatch, where we bring you some of the major news developments of the day. Yesterday, a hearing was held in the case of whistleblower and WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange at a magistrates' court in Westminster in the UK. During the hearing, Assange's lawyers raised the issue of ill treatment in prison. We talked to Anish about the case. Anish, thank you for joining us. So could you first talk about what exactly happened in court yesterday and what are the steps ahead?
Well, actually, it was a very brief hearing. It was barely 15 minutes, according to reports. The defense team for Assange actually pointed out that since the last hearing in December, they did not have enough time to meet Assange. In fact, they actually complained that the prosecution team has sometimes helped them to get access, to help him get access to legal help. And there was, in total, about only 2 hours that Assange could actually consult with his defense team. Going ahead, we actually also heard the fact that he was only kept in, along with the rest of the inmates, while he was exercising, which was like a 45-minute window throughout the whole day.
Right.
The rest of the time he's put in isolation. Even if he has to pass through a corridor, it would be cleared. So we actually we got a very brief glimpse of how he is being treated in the Belmarsh prison, which we should know is a category A prison where only people accused of terrorism or very heinous murders are kept, where it's necessary to keep them apart from the society. And a publisher like Assange is being kept on an extradition request, even though he's not arrested for he's only under remand.
Right. And so the next question would be basically, there's a trial coming up in February. So what are the key arguments of the prosecution likely to be in this case? And obviously, they are working closely with the US government on this. So.
Yeah. So much of the argument will be very clear by today when they will be presenting the evidence in the court today. Actually, the prosecution hasn't been very clear on how they are going to proceed. It is not very public. When they present the evidence today, we can be very sure of how they are going to go forward with it. But they have insisted on keeping the trial very short, keeping it very brief, giving very little window for the defense team to prepare for the case. The evidence is going to be shown only in the very last minute, which is today, and the proper trial will be within less than a month's time. So what we are looking at is something that they're trying to speed up, not really go through a proper trial. And in many ways, we have actually seen many people, including Craig Murray, who was present at the trial, and other journalists who have been present at the trial, who have noted the fact that the judge has been more cooperative to the prosecution than to the defense in many ways. The prosecution's charges have changed multiple times. We have seen that, and they couldn't come up with a proper charge that they can settle on until November. And when that happened, it just went on. Like the judge rolled with it, and we still have no evidence against him presented to the public, but we have a certain set of argument, which is that he conspired with Chelsea Manning, who is also in prison for not cooperating with the grand jury in the United States, into leaking the documents, and that he incited Manning into leaking the documents. Those are some of the charges, some of the crucial charges.
And he's looking at 175 years in prison if he's sentenced.
Combined. We are talking about 18 charges under the Espionage Act. So if gotten through, it's like effectively a life sentence. And this is something that has unsettled a lot of people, including publishers and editors. And the bigger concern is how the trial is going to be conducted. We know that the trial will be held inside the Belmarsh prison, which is very uncharacteristic for an extradition trial. There will also be done in a place where the capacity for public to sit inside the trial will be not more than 6. So they will make sure that nobody who is going to be more critical or more inquisitive of how the trial proceeds sits inside the courtroom, and which will actually cut off the outside world's view of how the judge and the prosecution is dealing with the trial.
Thank you, Anish. In our next story, we move on to Libya, which has been declared as one of the most conflict-ridden zones of 2019. The possibilities of peace in the country suffered a setback once again after the leader of one of the warring sides, General Khalifa Haftar, refused to sign a ceasefire deal that was proposed by Russia and Turkey. He had initially agreed to halt his offensive on Tripoli. As per reports, he left the ongoing talks in Moscow without signing the deal to which he had agreed on January 12th. Haftar left despite the fact that the Government of National Accord, led by Fayez al-Sarraj, had already signed the deal yesterday. The ceasefire, which was supposed to come into force on the midnight of 12 January, had revived the hopes of peace and was seen as a way to avoid a greater escalation after the announcement of Turkish deployment of soldiers in Libya earlier this month. Haftar was quoted by Al Arabiya as saying that the draft of the deal ignores many of the demands of his forces. The war in oil-rich Libya has been going on since NATO led an intervention in the country in 2011, which caused the removal of Muammar Gaddafi. Today, there are several militias controlling several parts of the country, with the Libyan Armed Forces or the Libyan National Army led by Khalifa Haftar and the GNA being the two major factions. That's all we have in this episode of the International Daily Roundup. To know more about these stories, visit our website peoplesdispatch.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Thanks for watching.
De pie cantar que vamos a triunfar.